What's up, everyone? Welcome to ClearTalk. We have some, I guess you could say, breaking news. We're going to talk about. We just had apparently, I guess, early in the morning hours in Qatar, Doha specifically, the capital of Qatar. Um, or Cutter, however you want to say it. There was an attack on the supposedly an attack on the am I still yeah supposedly an attack on the members of Hamas that are like your political leadership leadership of Hamas in Doha. All right. This was conducted by Israel. So we're going to talk about that. The ongoing issue of Israel seemingly continuing to prove that they are unwilling to negotiate, and the U.S.'s complicity in it, and it's extremely frustrating, as it has been. So, what happened? All right, what has been? Okay, what led up to this? We recently, earlier, a couple of days ago, or I guess at end of last week or whatever, Trump and the Trump administration or whatever gave handed over to Hamas a ceasefire proposal. Once again, it has been known that, or Hamas continues over and over again to agree to things, even like cutting themselves over and over again, giving in to stuff to try to make deals, and then ultimately Israel, along with the U.S., will turn around and be like, actually, no, we're not going to agree to that. We now want this. It's continuously moving the goalpost over and over and over again. And it's extreme. It's extremely frustrating just for those of us just trying to keep up with it. Much less it being frustrating for a group like Hamas or the Palestinian people or even the Israeli people to keep up with it, and or to figure out or understand or whatever, to deal with this and the frustration of it, because Israel keeps doing it over and over and over again. Because Hamas had just agreed to a ceasefire agreement that would allow, a certain amount of people, which they've been doing over a certain amount of period of time, which for them is an assurance of a long, and a steady ceasefire to be enacted. And the longer it's typically understood, the longer a ceasefire lasts, the harder it is for any party to re-engage in attack, because you start to get this more sentiment and more like public pressure from all sides, and international pressure from the public, and also even political pressure to continue this, because of this of things seen in the appearance of things being better and getting better and moving in a direction. Because I think overall as an international community, we like to see progression in conflict areas moving in a positive way, away from war, away from death and carnage and genocide in this fucking case. But as we've discussed before, we have continued parties in this who are protecting themselves and will do anything to keep it going. So they disagreed, and now the proposal basically is, 48 hours, from my understanding, what I've read, 48 hours to release everybody from all alive and dead being held in Gaza once it's signed, once it's agreed upon. And in 48 hours for a number, and it's undistinguished number of prisoners that Israel has, which is a number that Hamas there again has constantly relinquished its self to bringing because first it was like, we want this many numbers because that's what historically has been, because Israel has tenfold more prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, than people being held in Gaza. I mean, thousands and thousands of Palestinians that are in prisons in Israel. And so the mark was always high. It was the idea that for Israel in to be seen as, well, our people are equal, just getting our people back, one of our persons back is equal to, 100 of yours. That ours are so special. That's how much we care about them. And we're willing to give back 100 to 1 or whatever, idea, to make it look like Israel cares more about their actual people than they do. But Hamas is continuously dwindled down in agreement on how many that is. So, I mean, this proposal doesn't even acknowledge how many potentially could be, and doesn't give guarantee that Israel won't turn around and just recapture any amount that they want, which is what they typically do. They'll agree to release a certain amount of people, and then once they release those people in previous agreements, they would turn around and just capture and imprison that many plus some. It's a continuous cycle that Israel does in punishment to the Palestinian people. So we had this agreement, or this proposal, made by Trump and his administration. And word is, or supposedly whatever, the idea was that Hamas leadership was going over this proposal in Doha. Now, understand, if you don't know this, I'll quickly put this in context. Qatar is a medium, and has been for years, for negotiations really around all the Middle Eastern countries, really, but specifically, and majority of the time, it's between Israel and whoever the fuck they have a problem with. And in this case, it's been, and in this case, it's mostly, of course, Hamas, Gaza. The Hamas leadership, a lot of them are in Doha. That's where they reside. That's where because they're the political leadership. Understand, there's a political wing, and then there's a military wing of Hamas. The political wing, a lot of them actually reside in Doha, in Qatar. And that's so that they can deal with negotiations and the politics and stuff, around anything that goes on in Gaza or anything that goes on around Hamas and towards Israel. So they are looking at this. These are the people who do the negotiations, who look over the matter, who make decisions for Hamas, for Gaza, as loosely as that is. And you've already had previously, months ago, almost a year now ago, I guess, 6 or whatever, it was a while back. Israel assassinated one of the head leaders, or the head leader of Hamas, who was somebody that was in negotiations at that time. He had went to Iran for the funeral of for somebody else that Israel assassinated with Hezbollah, and he was assassinated. So they've already done this once before. And that also was an act to thwart negotiations at that time, to push Hamas into not agreeing. Well, if you're attacking us and we're not in agreement, and this is a problem, we're not going to accept this. Same thing over and over, kind of over again. So now we have them trying to go through this proposal and make a decision. And what does Israel do? They decide on themselves and by their accord, which was just recently announced by Netanyahu himself, that this was all wholly Israel conducted this act to bomb a supposed location for these Hamas members, the leadership, in an attempt to assassinate them. Now, and we've said this before, if you are trying to assassinate those or kill those or do some kind of harm towards those who are in talks and trying to actually work out a negotiation, what does that tell you? That you aren't interested in negotiating. That you do not want these to go through. Because this type of act is not going to turn around and threaten Hamas to the point of they're going to be like, oh my God, okay, whatever you say. It hasn't before. It's not going to now. Because they don't fall to that. They have a greater push within themselves as a resistance for Palestinian people. Now, there surely is some greedy members and greedy parts of Hamas that, don't really help the Palestinian cause that much. True. But the overarching, idea behind Hamas is for protection and freedom for the Palestinian people. That was what they grew to from the beginning, as a resistance against Israel, constantly, attacking, pushing, and taking, controlling the Palestinian people, not giving them freedoms, not giving them, any type of sovereignty or anything. Constantly, this has been going on for decades. And like we've stated before, Netanyahu's the one that helped Hamas come into power, and that was all so that he could kill the the whole two-state solution negotiation or idea of Palestinians getting their own state. that was a way to mess that up. So once again, Israel has done an action in order to try to kill a ceasefire agreement. I mean, I don't know how much it takes for people to realize that Israel is not in any way a good faith actor. And I'm not completely sure they ever were. And when I say this, I'm talking about the the leadership of Israel. I'm not talking about all Israel. I've made this clear multiple times. I'm talking about the leadership, the ones in power, the elites of the Israeli government and the state of Israel. They are bad faith actors. Their intent is power, control, imperialism, land grabbing to force what is, theoretically understood as the greater Israel. A return to the 3,000-year-old, according to them, promised land, going all the way back to Moses. This is their idea, that they have a right to this land, and they now have the military backing of the greatest power in the world in order to enforce this. And it's been something they have been working on for decades. The unwavering support of the U.S. in order to make this shit happen. And the way they get that is by getting the unwavering support of the people in the U.S. who agree with it and want it to happen for their own means that are not the means of Israel. Like, bringing about the second coming and rapture and stuff like that. It's what they think is going to happen. We must. I don't. This is something that's continuing to happen. Now, just real quick, reports so far, there has been no conclusion that anybody was actually assassinated. So far, reports are that there's nobody known to have actually been assassinated. But it's unclear whether they have or not. It's early stages. They're still being, authorities have the area under lockdown, trying to, assess the situation and look for victims or whatever. This is in an area where there's a whole lot of embassies. It's a fairly actual, from my understanding, a fairly residential type of area. There's even schools and stuff like that around the area. But the target was supposed to be according to Israel, a guided missile attack, precision strike, on exactly what they wanted to attack, which according to them was leadership of Hamas that were in the area. So we'll continue to wait for reports on whether or not that is the case, whether or not anybody actually was victim of this attack. So far, there has been some international condemnation, but again, It's just condemnation. It's just words. Nothing comes of that. Strongly lettered, it's like strongly worded words. How dare you? And you're so bad. This is something we do not agree with, but we're not going to do fuck about. There is, so far from my understanding, not been a announcement from the U.S. Whether or not U.S. is actually in cahoots with this, whether they knew about it. Local reports that have had contact with the U.S. military installations in Qatar. Yes, we do have military installations there. We have air bases and everything. State that they had no idea of the attack. So leadership or personnel, U.S. personnel there claim, or the claim is that they did not know about the attack. That does not mean that Washington didn't, but the idea is that nothing happens, that Israel doesn't do anything without the U.S. greenlighting it. I'm not completely convinced of that. I think maybe certain things, yes, or some things, yes, that Israel is concerned with having the backing from the U.S., but I think there are some things that Israel just decidedly does anyways, or they have maybe previously threw out the idea to U.S. leadership, and the U.S. was like, well, I mean, you do what you want, I guess. We don't really agree, or I'm not sure that we, but I mean, we might not necessarily stop you or do anything about it. If you did, it would be on you, like that kind of thing. And so Israel decides whenever they want to do it, they'll do it. I don't know. According to Israel, though, this was wholly them. So who knows? And honestly, I don't know if you can believe either one. I don't know if you can really, truly believe Israel. I don't know if you can really, truly believe the U.S. Needless to say, it still happened. It still causes issues with ceasefire agreements, which everyone, I think for the most part, or most people internationally, even in the U.S., even in Israel, want to happen. The bombing is to stop, the killing to stop, for humanitarian aid to open up and get in there. And that was also part of the agreement, that there would be opening up to humanitarian aid, although it didn't specify who would control that. I mean, Hamas had even previously agreed to Israel creating like a full barrier around Gaza. Like, that's how far Hamas had went in agreeing to allowing Israel to make a full-on barrier around Gaza, even some of it pressing into the Gaza border, for them to feel like they have some sort of security and control and can surveil the area until something of governance came into existence in Gaza, that where they could govern themselves. But the idea is that Israel wants there to be no militarization whatsoever, like all of Gaza stripped of any type of ability to protect or defend themselves in any kind of way possible. And that's just something that nobody would agree to. And those of you in the U.S., you know, I mean, you how many times you throw up about, you know, your Second Amendment rights and the right to bear arms and the right to have your defense. Why would you expect anybody else around the world to not feel the same fucking way? If they so felt that their safety needed it. The hypocrisy of those who would agree with Israel, or that, oh yes, the Palestinian people, they're so bad, they there's no way they could have, you know, we got to take everything from them, destroy them, wipe them off the face of the earth. Or those that are left, they you know, they can't have it because they're dangerous people. Oh, them and their potential guns that they would come have, or, you know, to go up against, you know, those big ass missiles that we give Israel all the time. Israel continues to be a problem. I will continue to say that. Netanyahu and his lackeys, the people in authority in Israel, continue to be a problem. They are causing havoc and disruption all across the Middle East. It is getting to where they literally have no problem dropping a bomb in anywhere, because they think they just have that type of authority, immunity. And it's because they feel that they have the unwavering support of America to back them up, while we continue to send weapons and money and allow them to do so. Where does it end? Where does it stop? I will keep up with this, and we'll update you. I said I wasn't going to be a news person, and this might be the only thing that I actually try to be somewhat of a news person on. But it can't be ignored anymore. It just can't. Thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think. And until next time, peace. ClearTalk. Much love. I'm out.